Every evening at exactly 7, he placed his phone beside him and waited. His name was Arthur. He was 74 years old and lived alone in the same small house where he had raised his family. At 7, he would make himself a cup of tea. He would sit in his favorite chair beside the window. And then, he would place his phone on the little wooden table beside him. Screen facing up, volume turned high, just in case. Arthur had 2 children, a son who lived in another city, a daughter who lived less than an hour away. He also had 3 grandchildren. Their photographs covered the shelf opposite his chair. Birthdays, school photographs, a family holiday by the sea, his granddaughter missing her 2 front teeth, his grandson proudly holding a football trophy. Arthur could remember the story behind every photograph. His family loved him. He knew that, but life had become busy. Very busy. His son had work, meetings, deadlines, and a long journey home every evening. His daughter was balancing her job with raising 2 children. The grandchildren had school, homework, sports, and friends. Everyone had somewhere to be, something to finish, someone to meet, and Arthur understood. At least, he tried to. 7 o'clock became part of his routine. Tea, chair, phone, wait. Sometimes it rang. His daughter's name would appear on the screen. Arthur's face would immediately change. Hello, Dad. Hi. I've only got a minute. I'm taking the kids somewhere. Of course. How are they? They're good. Everything's fine. Listen, I'll call you properly at the weekend. Don't worry. You go. Love you, Dad. Love you too. The call might last 2 minutes. Sometimes 3. Arthur would put the phone back on the table and smile. 2 minutes was still something. Other evenings, the phone didn't ring. At 7:15, Arthur would check the screen. Perhaps he had missed something. Nothing. At 7:30, he would take another sip of tea. By then, it was usually cold. At 8, he would switch on the television. Not because there was anything he particularly wanted to watch. He simply liked having voices in the room. Arthur's days had become quiet. After retirement, he had enjoyed the freedom at first. No alarm clock, no rush, no Monday morning traffic. He spent time in his garden. He read the newspaper slowly. He walked to the local shop. Sometimes he sat in a nearby park and watched the world moving around him. But as the years passed, things changed. Old colleagues moved away. Some friends became ill. A few were no longer there at all. The children who once filled his house with noise now had homes of their own. The house hadn't changed much, but the sound inside it had. One afternoon, Arthur opened a cupboard and found an old box. Inside were photographs his children had never seen. There was one of Arthur as a young man standing beside his first car. Another showed him holding his newborn son. There was a photograph of his wife laughing in the garden. Arthur sat at the kitchen table looking through them. He picked up his phone. For a moment, he thought about calling his son. Then he looked at the clock. 4:15. He'll be working, Arthur said quietly. He put the phone down. He thought about calling his daughter. Then remembered she collected the children around that time. She's probably busy. He returned the photographs to the box and closed the lid. Sometimes loneliness doesn't come because nobody loves you. Sometimes it comes because everyone is waiting for a better time to show it. That evening, 7 o'clock came again. Tea, chair, phone, wait. 7:10, 7:20, 7:40, nothing. Arthur turned on the television. The next morning, he went to the local shop. The young man behind the counter was someone Arthur had seen many times. His name was Sam. Usually, their conversations were simple. Morning, how much? $3.50, thanks, have a good day. But that morning, the shop wasn't busy. Sam noticed the old photograph Arthur was carrying. It had slipped partly out of the newspaper under his arm. Is that you? Sam asked. Arthur looked down. It was the photograph beside his first car. He smiled. That was a very long time ago. Nice car. Arthur laughed. You wouldn't say that if you'd tried starting it on a cold morning. Sam smiled. What happened to it? And for the next 5 minutes, Arthur told him. He told Sam how he had saved for months to buy it. How it broke down during his first long journey. How the woman who later became his wife had been sitting beside him. And how they had laughed so much about it that neither of them cared they were stranded. Sam listened. Really listened. When Arthur finished, Sam said, "You should bring more of those photos sometime. I'd like to see them." Arthur looked at him. Really? Of course. Arthur walked home that morning carrying the same groceries he always bought. But somehow, the walk felt different. The next week, Arthur brought another photograph. Then another. A simple conversation became a regular part of his mornings. Sam heard stories about Arthur's first job, his wedding, his children, the day his daughter learned to ride a bicycle, the family holiday where it rained for almost the entire week. Arthur had spent years collecting stories. He had simply run out of people to tell them to. Then one Saturday afternoon, something unexpected happened. Arthur's phone rang. He looked at the screen. His grandson, Leo. Arthur answered immediately. Hello, Granddad? Leo, everything all right? Yeah, Mum showed me that old picture you sent her. The one with the car. Arthur smiled. Oh, that old thing. Was that really yours? It certainly was. Was it fast? Arthur laughed. Fast? Going downhill, perhaps. Leo laughed too. Then he asked another question. And another. Arthur told him about the car. Then about his first job. Then somehow they started talking about football. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. Before ending the call, Leo said, Granddad? Yes? Can I call you again next week? Arthur looked towards the photographs on the shelf. I'd like that very much. The following Saturday, Leo called again. Then the next. Sometimes they spoke for 20 minutes. Sometimes only 5. One week Leo forgot completely. The next morning, he sent a message. Sorry, Granddad. Can I call tonight? Arthur replied with just 2 words. Of course, something had changed. Not because Arthur suddenly had a busy social life. Not because his loneliness disappeared completely. But now, someone was making space for him. And something else changed too. Arthur stopped waiting only for other people to call. One afternoon, he phoned his daughter. Dad, is everything okay? Everything's fine. I was just wondering how your day was. She paused, then laughed. Honestly? Terrible. Arthur smiled. Tell me about it. They talked for 12 minutes. No emergency, no birthday, no special occasion, just 12 ordinary minutes. And perhaps that was exactly what made them special. We often think staying connected requires time we don't have. A long visit, a free afternoon, a carefully planned family gathering. So we tell ourselves, I'll call at the weekend. I'll visit next month. I'll talk when things calm down. But life has a strange way of never really calming down. There is always another email, another appointment, another deadline, another task. And sometimes the people we love quietly move further into the background while we are taking care of everything that feels urgent. There may be an Arthur in your life. A parent, a grandparent, an old friend, a former colleague, a neighbor, someone whose days have become quieter than they used to be. Someone who doesn't want to bother you. Someone who looks at their phone and decides not to call because you might be busy. You don't need to solve their loneliness. You don't need to plan something expensive. You don't need to have an hour available. Call while you're walking home. Call while the kettle is boiling. Send a voice message. Ask about an old photograph. Ask about their childhood. Ask them something you've never asked before. And then, listen, because one day, we may discover that the stories we thought would always be there were waiting for someone to ask. That evening, Arthur made his tea as usual. At 7 o'clock, he sat in his favorite chair. The phone was beside him. But this time, he wasn't staring at it. He was looking through the old photographs. At 7:05, the phone rang. Leo. Arthur smiled and answered. Hello, young man. Hi, Granddad. I've got a question. Go on. Mum says you once got lost driving to your own wedding. Arthur sat up. Now, that is not exactly what happened. Leo laughed. And Arthur began another story. Maybe tonight, someone is waiting to hear your voice. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until life becomes less busy. 5 minutes may not feel like much to you. But to someone waiting at the other end of the phone, 5 minutes of your time could mean someone's entire day.